Hi, everyone. Welcome to Module 6. Today, we are shifting our focus from how we talk online using normal language to something a bit more behind the scenes, the coding systems that make the web work. These are the tools that structure websites and let us see and do things online. So don't worry if you're not a tech expert, as we will break this down together. So, what do we mean by coding systems? Well, these are the formal ways we tell computers what to do online. They include programming languages, markup languages, and other tools that create web pages and online features. Just to be clear, we're focusing on coding for the web, not things like emails or file downloads. And while we look at tools that were common around 2002, we keep in mind that web tech evolves fast and new tools pop up all the time. To make things easier to understand, we'll break down web coding systems into four main parts. First is the summary of web coding systems, as this gives us a big picture view of the different types of coding used to create websites. Second is the overview of web markup languages. Markup languages are special codes that help format and structure web pages. The most common one is HTML. Third is the introduction to web programming languages. These are actual coding languages used to make websites function. So examples of these include JavaScript and Python. And lastly, is the introduction to web quasi programming languages and applications. These are tools that help make websites interactive and more advanced, but they are not full programming languages. So, we will go through each of these step by step so you can understand how they work together to create the websites we use every day. So, first, let's talk about the summary of web coding systems. So, when we browse the internet, we see websites with text, images, buttons, and interactive features. But how do these websites actually work? They are built using different types of coding systems, and let's break them down into three main categories. First is the markup languages, or let's call it the structure of web pages. So basically, markup languages are not traditional programming languages. Instead, they use tags to define the structure of a web page. And as I've said earlier, the most common markup language is HTML or hypertext markup language. So HTML tells the browser what to display, whether it's a heading, a paragraph, an image, or a link. Other markup languages like XML or CSS help organize and style the content on web pages. So think of HTML like the walls and framework of a house. So it sets up the layout, but it doesn't control how the house functions. Second is the programming languages, or the brain of the web. So, unlike markup languages, programming languages tell the computer what to do. Websites need programming languages to handle user interactions, store data, and run applications. So, some common programming languages used for web development include C++, Java, Python, and JavaScript. So, what is C++? C++ is a powerful high performance programming language. So, it was created in the 1980s and it is used for developing operating systems, games, and high speed applications. So, although it was not originally made for web development, it is sometimes used for back end processing on websites, like handling databases or security systems. Next, what is Java? Java is a general purpose programming language that was designed to be portable, meaning it can run on different devices without needing to be rewritten. So, Java is commonly used for web applications, mobile apps, especially in Android, and enterprise software. So, many large companies like Google, Netflix, and Amazon use Java to power their systems. Third is the quasi programming languages and application programs. So they make websites interactive. These are not full programming languages, but they help developers add special features to web pages. They allow websites to have animations, forms, and other interactive elements without needing advanced coding. So, some common tools in this category include JavaScript, which adds interactivity like pop up alerts, image slideshows, and form validation. Another is WordPress and Wix, drag and drop website builders that let people create websites without coding. So, as a final takeaway, markup languages like HTML create the structure of a web page. Programming languages like C++ and Java allow websites to function by handling user inputs, processing data, and running applications. And quasi programming tools like JavaScript and WordPress add interactivity and ease of use for both developers and users. So, in simple terms, think of a website like a restaurant. HTML is the menu and layout. It shows what's available but doesn't cook the food. C++ and Java are the chefs. They handle the cooking and prepare the meals. And JavaScript and WordPress are the waiters and online ordering system, as they help the restaurant run smoothly and provide a better experience for customers. So without these coding systems, the internet as we know it wouldn't exist. Next, let's talk about the overview of web markup languages. Before websites existed, people needed a way to organize and format text for printing. This is where markup languages come from. They help structure documents by adding special tags to text. What is a markup language? A markup language is a system that adds tags to text to control how it appears. It doesn't tell the computer what to do, like programming languages, but instead, it structures and formats a document. The idea comes from editors marking up manuscripts with notes for how they should be printed. Early markup languages. So before the web, people needed systems to format printed documents. So PostScript and TeX were two early markup languages used for typesetting books and research papers. These weren't for the web, but they introduced the idea of using special codes to control text appearance. Now let's talk about the origins of web markup. In the 1960s, researchers started looking for a way to digitally tag printed text. So William Tunnicliffe and Stanley Rice were among the first to explore this idea. Charles Goldfarb developed the Generalized Markup Language, or GML, in 1969, which later became SGML, or Standardized Generalized Markup Language. So SGML laid the foundation for HTML, or Hypertext Markup Language, which is the main language used to build websites today. So basically, markup languages organize and format text. And early systems like PostScript and TeX were for printed documents. Now, HTML, developed from GML, became the starting point for HTML, which powers modern web pages. So, as an analogy, you can think of markup languages like the instructions in a theater script. So they don't perform the play, but guide how it should be presented. On this part, we'll talk more about web markup languages. As I've said a while ago, web markup languages are used to structure and format content on the web. The W3C, or World Wide Web Consortium, led by Tim Berners-Lee, is the organization that sets the standards for how these languages should be used. Now, according to the W3C recommendations, it provides official guidelines to ensure that web coding is consistent and works across different devices and platforms. Then, these recommendations are widely accepted and followed by web developers to make sure web pages are displayed correctly. Now, the standardized generalized markup language, or SGML, was developed from an earlier system called GML, Generalized Markup Language. It was approved as an international standard by the ISO, or International Organization for Standardization, in 1986. HTML was designed for creating large, complex technical documents like manual books that could work across different formats. But when it comes to the limitations of HTML, it was too complex to be used easily on personal computers and for everyday web use. So, for its impact, even though HTML was not directly used on the web, it had a big influence on later web languages, especially XML or Extensible Markup Language. XML simplified HTML's concepts and became more popular for use on the web. So, in short, the W3C sets the rules for web coding to make sure everything works well together. And HTML was an early markup system used for technical documents, but it was too complex for regular computer use. And XML, which is a simplified HTML's ideas and became a popular web language. Now let's talk about HTML or Hypertext Markup Language. Hypertext Markup Language, or HTML in short, is a language used to create and organize websites. Now, why HTML was created? Tim Berners-Lee created HTML to help share and organize text on the web. What HTML does? Well, HTML helps link web pages using URLs or website addresses. It lets browsers and servers talk to each other so websites can load. So, for the main uses of HTML, it organizes content, which means it structures things like headings, paragraphs, and lists. And HTML also makes links, which means it creates clickable links to other pages. When it comes to limitation, HTML is used for static content, meaning the web page stays the same until someone updates it. So, in short, HTML is the basic language that makes web pages and links work. It keeps content organized, but it doesn't change unless manually updated.
So, to move on, the example below provides a simple illustration of how HTML coding works. So, this is the HTML code, this is the visualization of the example, and the result on web page, hickory dickory dock, the mouse turned up the clock. The I tag applies italics and the P creates a new paragraph. So the title, a nursery rhyme sampler, does not appear in the text itself but the top of the web browser. The full set of HTML codes used by adept web page designers is quite extensive. As growing numbers of internet users have wanted to create their own websites, the software industry has responded by writing applications programs that function as WYSIWYG, or what you see is what you get HTML editors. That is, they enable users to see the document that HTML describes as they are creating the HTML code.